This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for St. Patrick's Day, March 17, 2015. First of all, we tell you every week that the meeting is being recorded, and we also want to start each meeting as we do with a moment of appreciation for our servicemen serving around the world. Thank you very much. I want to remind everybody that next Monday, March 23 at 7:30 p.m. at the high school gymnasium is the special town meeting. There'll be two articles. One is on the public safety building, and the other is on a solar photovoltaic array at the wastewater treatment plant. 7 o'clock, and we're going to hear from the Lyme Disease Study Committee. Chris Caldy, Chair. Hi, Chris. Thanks for coming.
Use the
I will, thank you.
Handouts. How cool.
Yeah, handouts.
Thank
Summary.
you.
Thanks, Chris.
This is the report that I wrote for the annual report
Yep.
as well, so. Hi, I'm Chris Caldy, Chair of the Lyme Disease Study Committee, and I'm here to report on our year of education and protection against various tick-borne diseases. Sorry, I'm stuttering. I'm planning to report on our educational efforts for this past year, and then Frank Perry will come up and report on our hunting season program. And first, I would love to put out feelers for more people for our committee. We've lost 2 more members, so we're down to Frank, myself, Barry, and Nancy Schemer, who's the school nurse over at Wheelock. And our committee's been in existence, I think, 5 or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken, and I think people just run their course, they move on to something else, but we're still here and plan to continue. As far as our education efforts, we've continued the efforts we've made over the past years, which are things such as notices in the newspapers and posters around public areas and tick check cards given out to the young students. The new efforts this year were creating a Facebook page, which I've tried to expand the number of people who see it. And I know that you both pick up on that, which is great, that you can send again whatever I post. We're now using email as a means to contact sports coaches each season and the scout leaders to allow them to then disseminate the information to the parents of those kids in the spring and the fall. A big thing, which I'm thrilled, the Mass Department of Public Health recreated their information. Here's a little pamphlet about ticks, and it also has mosquitoes on the back. This is a great little booklet. There's also a pamphlet. But as part of recreating their educational pamphlets on ticks, they also created videos, and we are running those on the 3 Medfield channels during the peak seasons. I just emailed Aditi today to have her start them up again for the spring.
Good.
They're really 30-second spots that she puts on quite often, and one is on I'm trying to remember. I haven't looked at them in a while, but they're both about prevention. One's about what you can do to protect your property, and the other's about personal protection.
Yeah.
And they're really well done, and so I'm very happy that the Department of Public Health provided those. So I think that's kind of a highlight for us for this year. I know last year we got your approval to continue with our hunting program without annual approval. So I'm here really just to report, and I'm open to any questions you or anyone else might have.
No, I just want to commend you for working with the schools on the sports and the coaches, and that gets out to the students, because a lot of them are the ones in the fields and things like that. So I think that's great, you're working with a partnership with that. So I commend you on that. I think you guys do a great job. It's a serious issue, and I hope there's other people maybe that are out there that will join with your committee, because I think it's very important. Medfield, I think, still is one of the, one of the greatest numbers of, the higher numbers of Lyme disease in any community in Massachusetts. So it is a big issue here, and you guys are doing yeoman's work on that, so thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I happened to notice this past week that the state had, in the past, called your program a paradigm of how it should be done in the state. So congratulations on running such
Really?
a good program.
Where'd you see that?
It was in some notes that I had made at some
Oh,
point,
that's-
but
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's nice. You reminded me of something else. Yeah, we do, yeah, the whole thing with the schools. It's key to get to that. You can reach a huge number of parents through that method, and the nurses as well are part of that effort too, and the gym teachers, so. If there's no more questions, I'll bring up Frank Perry
All
to
right.
talk about our
great, thank you.
seasonal program.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Frank Perry, and along with Chris and Barry, I run the deer management program.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, we took 30 deer. It was a very tough year.
Yeah,
And that brings our total up to about 140 deer since the program began.
okay.
Many other towns in the area are adopting our program. And I read something today where the state is considering a hunt over in Blue Hills on 7,000 acres
Oh,
because
wow.
they have almost 85 deer per square mile.
Mile, yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a concern that everybody has.
Sure.
Millis is working on a program, Sherburne's working on a program. We helped the town of Weston get their program going, and so we're open to helping other towns.
Any luck with Walpole? I know that was a concern you had, because we have a lot of our open space and woods are on the Walpole line, no?
No, not really. They
That's
just
too
don't
bad.
seem to have much of an interest, and so. But I think it's been very successful. I mean, we continue to catch people
Yeah.
hunting illegally.
Yeah, which is a good,
Barry and I are in the woods constantly chasing these guys, taking stands out and whatever. So, I mean, I think it keeps them on their toes and,
yeah,
we've still have not had a single incident or complaint really in the 4 years we've
been doing it, yeah.
been doing the
Yeah,
program. So,
Excellent.
I mean, I think
Yep.
overall it's going very well.
Have you been able to add any additional acreage on the private front there at all?
We have a few private properties, I think, 4, altogether. That's one area we really have to work on, is getting some of the private property owners. We have areas, down off 109 that we have no hunters there.
Yep,
And also on North Street heading towards Walpole, we have very few hunters up in that area. So we'd like to expand there.
yeah, yeah,
And our biggest problem is the 500-foot setback limit. The state commissioned a study, and they made a recommendation of 150 feet. And we have to abide by, the 500 unless we get permission from the property owners.
okay.
So we're gonna try to focus on that. If we can get, sometimes if you can get 2 or 3 houses at the end of a cul-de-sac,
Okay.
it opens up a whole nother area.
Yeah,
I think for the, in many parts of town, the deer, we're close to the right levels. Where people can enjoy them and see them, but that we're not overrun with them.
right,
There are 3 or 4 areas in town that Barry and I have been going into all winter, snowshoeing.
yeah,
And they have densities that are probably way over 50 deer per square mile. I mean, they're small areas, but they have
yeah,
enormous amounts of deer. So those areas will require us getting, permission to hunt maybe within 250 feet or 200
Yeah.
feet from certain property owners. So we can certainly use help there. And I think if we can identify those areas, maybe if you folks know people there, or you know, we could pull the resources of the town
Yeah.
to see if we can get some
Encourage
permission to
people,
go in
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But,
I think we're due to have our state reps and senators in soon because we've had some issues of storms and being
Mhm.
canceled, but that's probably something we can raise with them. Again, I don't know if you've had communications with our two reps and senator, whether there's support or whether something like that would pass on the state level. If, it sounds
I
like
mean,
there's
we
a...
have, and Dover has as well, but it's just not a priority with all that's going on in the state,
Yeah,
Mm,
you know,
mhm.
to raise it, to lower it, so.
Yeah.
And then Sunday hunting is also something that's been proposed.
Yep.
Which would
Mhm.
give, you know, the average guy who's working all week long, you know, it doubles their time in the woods. So,
Exactly, yeah.
you know, I think those two things are real concerns, but,
Mhm.
you know. We have seen the accidents with cars go down. Certainly this summer, we saw a lot less ticks than we have in any other year. I'm not sure we could take credit. It was awfully dry. So, I mean, that's gonna take many years for us to
To really
gauge
think,
what kind of effect that's having.
Mhm, mhm.
But I think overall, we're harvesting deer, they're being used, and we're eliminating illegal hunters, and we're patrolling it very carefully. We work with Chief Meany, and if there's a problem somewhere, we get right down there and figure it out. So overall, I think it's very worthwhile.
Excellent.
no, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent.
I wonder, I don't know if Barry, but just to change subject, because I see Barry here, the other issue, in addition to the deer, of course, are the beavers. How will we with that? I know there was some major flooding on some issues on White Street, and there was the trees coming down along the causeway. You'd have to use the mic to respond to that. Where are we with that? Are we making headwater, or?
Well, with the winter, we haven't been able to trap or remove any beavers, and they become inactive. They just go from their house and they go under the ice and they feed in their feed beds. So they don't build dams this time of year, so we really won't see how bad the area is in these areas until everything thaws out and they start moving around again.
Mhm.
How did you do? I know before you were breaching some of the dams along the Stop River, that area.
I think I took out approximately 12 beaver last fall from the Causeway Street
Mhm, mhm.
up to South Street on the Stop River and the tributaries out to 27.
Wow,
Well,
wow.
I mean, that's gonna have a big effect, but as soon as you do take animals out of the area,
Yeah.
and in the springtime, the females kick the young out to have another litter.
Yeah.
So they all just disperse and find other areas again. It won't be as bad as it was last year, but I'm gonna have to revisit probably every area that I took
because I know
beavers
the
from.
folks down in Juniper Lane and stuff were having some flooding issues
Yep.
in
Yep.
that
I
area.
actually saw that fella down at Will's just a week ago and asked him, and he said the water's not nearly as bad as it was, but it's not down to its normal level of where it was when he moved into the house, so I'm sure there's a few more still there, and he can't wait to get me back in there.
What about the White Street area? That's the highest I've ever seen water coming up on White Street by Harding Street area.
Yeah, White Street, there was a dam on the corner of White and Harding.
Mhm, mhm.
That is getting beavers from upstream of the Cronin property that's now sold to someone else, I believe.
Yeah.
And with the renovation, he hasn't been in contact with me. He hasn't been, telling me if there was beavers or they're building that dam back up, as of late last fall. I'm sure this spring I'll visit him again and talk to him and see if because those beaver are coming downstream to the Harding Street area. When they get kicked out, they just come down that way
Yeah.
and just block it up again, so.
Awesome.
I think I got 4 or 5 beaver out of there last fall in
Yeah,
that area.
Is there any other area you see of potential flooding that we should be really watching?
It's just the community, reporting,
Yeah. what you
if
see.
there's water,
Mhm.
high water, and they don't normally have high water in the area. If it's not raining, then it's probably a beaver issue, and they need to,
Yeah.
contact the town would be the
Yeah.
best thing to do, so
Yeah.
it could be taken care of.
I see on the causeway, they actually, one of the trees right in the street, he had done a job on that. That thing would have come right down under the street there
Absolutely.
if the town didn't take that down.
Anything
Thanks
else?
very much, Barry.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Barry.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chris? Yes?
I just wanted to say that back when we started the hunting program, there was one resident who came to our meeting who was very concerned about the safety aspect of it. And I happened to run into him in the woods this winter, and he was nothing, and I was so pleased. I was wondering what he was going to say, but
Yeah.
he was nothing but complimentary to the hunters and the program and the results. And he was very, very pleased, and so he had a complete turnaround of mind, which was very nice
Oh, good.
to hear.
Yep.
That's
It's
all.
been
Thank
so
you.
professionally run. Thank you guys very much for
Thank you.
what you do.
Thanks to Frank and Barry.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Barry.
We're supposed to discuss the snow deficit through March 10.
I got the figures from the town accountant today, and it looks like after next week's warrant will be about $345,000 in deficit. There is action, and I think this is something we need to talk to next week with our legislators when they come here to find out what the likelihood of some state or federal assistance is in helping. I'm carrying in my budget estimates 250,000 snow deficit, assuming somewhere along the line there'll be some assistance one way or another.
Yeah.
Now, the legislature, there was some talk about allowing the snow deficit to be spread over 2 years instead of one, and that would help as long as it doesn't snow next winter. But I think the ultimate solution will be if the president approves the governor's request for emergency assistance. That would
Yeah.
bring us enough assistance to get us down where I think the 250 would be sufficient, unless we get an April or May snowstorm. So
Anything else on the snow? Discuss Superintendent Feeney's March 11 memo regarding the use of Chapter 90 funds for highway equipment. Is that Mike or
I
Chris?
think Capital Budget Committee had some discussion of this. Chris, do you want to?
There were, Ken actually made some requests through the Capital Budget Committee for 4 pieces of equipment, 3 of which were to replace equipment that was damaged during the snowstorm. And the Capital Budget Committee asked him to put a memo to you. They didn't feel it was appropriate for them to approve Chapter 90 funds, since it's really the selectmen who approves Chapter 90 funds. So they have no problem with the request coming through the capital budget, but they would like the selectmen to determine how the Chapter 90 money will be spent.
So as town administrators, do you guys have a recommendation to us on what to do on this?
I think we need to replace some of the equipment. I don't know if we need to do it all in 1 year. I think probably we need to sit down and talk to Ken about that. I haven't really had a
Maybe we can
chance
do
to go
that.
over it with him, but
All right.
it'll be.
My concern would be, it's about $500 and something thousand, if you add that up.
It says the Chapter 90 balance is $1 million, almost $1.8 million, and it looks like, around 500,000.
So my own concern is if they take it out of Chapter 90, which is roads, what is not going to get done that would have, where would that $500,000 normally go? What roads, what
Well,
what are we
Green
gonna
Street and
be?
North Street seem to be the next ones, aren't they?
Yeah, Green Street, they're planning to do this summer, so that will be done.
That'll be
So
done
would-
regardless.
Would that be
Yes.
cut back because of that, or?
I believe the funds have already been allocated for that, so I don't think that's included in the $1.8 million. I'll check with Ken on that to be sure, but in the North Street project, I believe they were going to try to get funds because it's an interconnecting road connecting Medfield and Center and Dover Center. So they're going to try to get some state funding for that.
But do we know where this $500,000 was going to be allocated if it wasn't?
No, I mean, they save them for projects as they come along, and the roads are in pretty good shape. I assume one of the ones they need to address again would be 109, because 109, particularly through the center,
Getting beat up
is
again.
already
Yeah.
getting
Way
rutted,
beat
yeah,
up.
yeah.
Is it possible that some of these amounts, if the president does declare a state of emergency, is it possible that some of these, because I believe This equipment was damaged during the snow storm itself?
What they do, rather than replace equipment, they allow you so much per hour for when the equipment is in usage. And we have, thanks to Donna Semino, have put together quite a list of equipment rental
Yeah.
that will bring us in good shape as far as deficit goes. But I don't think you can qualify for purchasing
Damaged
new
equipment?
equipment.
You can't?
Capital
Because
equipment.
you would be using it not for the storm, you'd be using it post-storm.
Yeah.
You'd be getting the equipment, so.
Yeah.
They only want to reimburse you for your actually expenditures during the event.
Even though it was damaged during the storm?
Yeah, well, they'd say that's wear and tear, and they will approve the hourly rental during
Sure.
that period. And so,
So I guess, just thinking off the top of my head on this one, Mike, first of all, I don't know whether we need this, so these 4 pieces of equipment. I'm assuming we do if Ken says that we need them. But I guess that would be the first question that I would ask, that maybe you and Chris could answer for us, the real need for the equipment. And then the second one is maybe to give us alternatives. I don't know, it's either a capital budget item, this Chapter 90, or we can bond it, I guess, couldn't we, and pay for
I
it
don't
that
think
way?
you want to start bonding equipment purchases. We managed to avoid that
Yeah,
pretty much.
okay.
The only
Yeah.
thing I think we
Yeah.
bonded is the fire truck that we bought, a pumper truck.
Well, you're
Yeah.
gonna have to
Bonded
pay
that
for
for
it
10
somehow
years.
is the issue,
But
so.
I,
But if you could maybe come back to us with a recommendation of how we do it, then if it's needed, then we'll have to figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah, and if Ken is here tonight, maybe we can ask him
He is
if
here.
he could give us an
Yeah,
update.
okay.
Here he is,
Ken?
okay, yeah.
The equipment there is obviously big equipment, very expensive equipment. We simply do not have enough money in the capital budget to replace this stuff.
Yeah.
The original capital budget started out at probably 400,000, I'm thinking, and now what are we down to? 350. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No, I think it's 400 or 450 this year, isn't it?
It's 400.
400.
400?
Okay, so we went
400.
back the other way. But again, as you can see, the
Yeah.
expense of that equipment, and it's been sitting there, I mean, you're talking about a trade-in of a 1979 Mack truck.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think at the end of its useful period.
Definitely.
And, you know, it's big equipment, it's hard to replace. The state will buy it for us, and I'm very comfortable with the Chapter 90 fund balance where it's at and the
Yeah.
road maintenance program that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very comfortable with that, and I certainly wouldn't recommend, you know, jeopardizing the Chapter 90.
Sure.
We did get an increase in Chapter 90 this year. Governor Baker released a bunch of local funds to increase the Chapter 90 allotments. It was a substantial increase. So, again, these are hard pieces of equipment for us to replace.
Yeah.
And it's just the log jam. We've been
Yeah.
asking for them and asking for them, and we just haven't been getting.
Okay.
You know, we can't do lease purchase on this big equipment.
Yeah.
I guess the town council doesn't recommend that method. And so, Chapter 90 is available.
Yep.
There are towns doing it. There's some big equipment, there's no doubt about it. It does have to be replaced, it's getting backlogged.
Mm-hmm.
So
So-
I think that's what where we're going with that.
Okay.
So I guess in my thinking, rather than just having a $500,000 request come to a selectmen's meeting, it would somehow be good to have a capital budget projection out over several years, maybe, so that we can see this stuff coming. I would think the warrant committee would appreciate that too, instead of having us just say, let's spend $500,000 tonight.
At one time, Pete, I had a 5-year replacement plan. This stuff should have been off the boards if we had a 5-year replacement plan. It would have been off the boards, probably one machine at a time.
Yeah.
We don't have enough money to do that, okay? So you can project 5 years out, but you cannot. If you don't get the equipment, your 5-year plan is no good. And we just don't have enough money in the capital budget.
So is all this equipment damaged during the storm? Is that why you're coming in now, or is this something?
It's old equipment. It's replaced, it's got to be replaced, it's old. It's damaged during the storm. You know, a 1979 Mack is not, you're not
Right.
saying it's damaged during the storm,
No.
it's time to replace it.
Yep.
So I think that, I think the list is legitimate. We're backlogging again, we're backing things up, and I would recommend it, and I'm very comfortable with the balance of the Chapter 90.
So
Okay.
by taking that $500,000 out of Chapter 90, what are we not going to be able to do then?
Nothing. We'll be able to, we'll proceed with our, we've saved Chapter 90. We do most of our maintenance of our roads out of budget, and then we save the Chapter 90 for the major roadways, 109, 27, north, south. You know, that's the only place we put them on, is the major roadways. That's the only place we spend Chapter 90. Other towns spend Chapter 90 in their subdivisions. To me, I think that's a mistake. The stone seals that we put out,
Yeah.
that's a major reason. In the subdivisions, you know, we maintain our road system in the subdivisions with crack fill and stone seals. And it's like, you know, it's like we paint, you know, it's like redoing your house with paint or whatever, but it works. It protects the roads, you know, because all our roads are, you know, 3.5 inches thick in the subdivisions, and, you know, they're all by the subdivision rules and regulations. They're good roads, you gotta just preserve the base, and that's the whole thing with our attitude towards road maintenance. We're not missing anything here, on our major roadways when they need it.
We didn't have that additional 500,000, where would that go normally, to 109, or what?
Oh, 109 is gonna be scheduled pretty soon, but it's still, we'll have a good balance. Again, and plus, we've still got more Chapter 90 coming in.
For this year, right.
Reallocation will be coming.
For this year, yeah.
And I'm very comfortable with the expenditure.
So, Ken,
If you guys want to cut something back, I'll take a look at it, but I just, you know, we're backlogging this big equipment.
how immediate is the need for this $500,000 of equipment on this list? Can we defer this to another meeting, because we've got the warrant committee that's supposed to start right now?
I didn't mean to put that on you this meeting.
Okay, then we'll defer it, we'll try to get more information,
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
we'll try to figure out, I think it would be good to try to figure out
Yep.
how to get this information into a capital budget process that comes in, so that we can see it coming years away. I
Yep.
mean, rather than just having a $500,000 amount, but thank
I'll
you.
come in at a future date and we'll discuss it.
Okay, great. Licenses and permits, Medfield Garden Club requests permission to post signs to promote spring plant sale held on Saturday, May 16. Signs in place May 10 through 16.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Zulu Gallery requests a one-day wine and malt beverage permit for 3 upcoming events: Saturday, March 21, fundraising event for the Medfield High School Jazz Band trip to New Orleans; Thursday, April 30, Doug Olson Jazz Performance; and Saturday, June 13, 6th Annual Art Festival.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I will second that also.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Let's just defer the selectmen's reports, and anything on informational, Mike, that you want people to know, or Chris?
I think it was a letter from Officer Pellegrini.
Nice
thanking
of him to write.
So,
He's a class act on that.
yes, and I think the rest are fairly routine, so.
Okay, we're back on schedule then. It's the warrant committee's turn.
Welcome. We'll declare the warrant hearing portion of this meeting open. You have here the bare minimum number of warrant committee members who can conduct this hearing. 3 of us were felled by illness today. Legitimately, I think. I don't think it was just avoiding this meeting. If it was probably a good idea by them. We will proceed as we have in the past, in that we will read through the current warrant articles that are expected to be on the warrant at the town meeting. The text of all of the articles is available in the back. So we will not read the full text of all the warrant articles. When it comes time for the budgets, and the department budgets and the capital budgets, we'll proceed as Mr. McDermott does at town meeting. I will read through a list of the departments, or Barbara will read through the list of the capital budget requests. If anyone wants to discuss any of those budgets, just simply say hold, and we will return to that after we've read through the list. If no one says that with respect to a department, we'll simply move on. At this point, the warrant committee has not yet voted on any recommendations on any warrant articles. The purpose of this hearing is for people to weigh in on what you think our recommendations ought to be. Yeah, if you have the list in the back of the operating budgets, what you have is the departmental requests as they currently stand. Some of them have been revised or in the process of being revised. We've been working on the budgets and the other articles since the beginning of the year. Any questions on procedure. All right. Then we'll start with Article number 2. Article number 2, to see if the town will vote to accept the reports of the several town officers for the past year. Article 3, to see if the town will accept perpetual care trust funds for the care of lots at Vine Lake Cemetery. Article 3, which relates to the reauthorization of the fire alarm revolving fund pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to reauthorize an ambulance revolving fund pursuant to the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, as revenue that comes in for usage of the ambulances from insurance companies. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to reauthorize an advanced life support fund pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, for the payment of advanced life support charges coming from insurers and users of services. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to reauthorize a community gardens revolving fund, funds not to exceed $1,500 to come from registration fees paid by gardeners, and to authorize the town administrator to expend from said funds. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to authorize a building maintenance income revolving fund. This relates to rental and other fees and income at the senior center. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to reauthorize a library revolving fund pursuant to the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half, funds not to exceed $5,000, and come from fees at the library for things like photocopiers and printers. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to reauthorize a respite care revolving fund, funds not to exceed $75,000, and this is fees and incomes and gifts related to the respite care program at the center, at the senior center. So Article 11 is to see if the town will accept for the fiscal year 2016 the provisions of Section 4 of Chapter 73 of the Acts of 1986 in accordance with and subject to the provisions of said Section 4, providing for an additional exemption for a taxpayer who shall otherwise qualify for an exemption under clauses 17D, 22, 22A, 22B, 22C, D, E, 37A, 41C, 42, or 43 of Section 5 of Chapter 59. I think this relates to veterans' tax exemptions. All right, Article 12.
To see if the town will vote to accept General Law, Chapter 59, Paragraph 5, Clause 41A, increasing the gross receipts that seniors may have in the prior calendar year to be eligible to defer property taxes from 40,000 to 100% of the amount established annually by the Commissioner of Revenue as the income limit for single seniors who are not heads of households to qualify for the circuit breaker state income tax credit for the preceding state tax year, with such increase to be effective for deferrals granted for taxes assessed for all fiscal years beginning on July 1st, 2015, or do or act anything in relation thereto. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to fix the salary and compensation of the following elected officers: moderator, town clerk, selectmen, assessors, school committee, trustees of the public library, park and recreation commissioners, planning board, housing authority, and trust fund commissioners, or do or act anything in relation thereto. And the list is below. Number 14, to see if the town will vote to amend the personnel administration plan and classification of positions and pay schedule effective July 1st, 2015, as set out in the warrant, or do or act anything in relation thereto.
Right, Article 15 is the operating budget. So I will read from the tracking sheet that's out there by department. And again, if anyone has questions or wishes the discussion on any of these budgets, just say hold, and then we'll circle back to the discussion of any departments or lines that are held. So starting at the top, workers' compensation insurance, life insurance, health insurance, property and liability, fire and EMT medical and disability insurance, indemnification for retired police, unemployment compensation, Medicare and federal mandates, county retirement fund, town debt principal, town debt interest, selectmen, town administrator, warrant committee, town accountant, assessors, treasurer, tax collector, town council, human resources, information technology, town clerk election registration, conservation commission, planning board, zoning board of appeals, town hall, public buildings and property maintenance, town report, town meeting, police administration, police operations, traffic markings and signs, school traffic, fire and rescue administration, fire and rescue operations, inspection department, sealer, MEMA civil defense, animal control officer, tree care, highway, snow and ice, street lights, town garage, equipment repair and maintenance, sidewalks, public works utilities, solid waste disposal, cemetery, Board of Health, Public Health, Mental Health, Council on Aging, Veterans, Outreach, Library, Parks and Recreation, Historical Commission, Grave Markers and Flags, Memorial Day and Veterans Day, Arts and Cultural Council, Stabilization Fund, Reserve Fund, Water Department, Sewer Department, Schools Vocational, Schools. All right, and that's it. Barbara.
Okay.
No
Article,
holds, no discussion.
Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate from the fiscal 2016 tax levy and/or transfer from available funds and/or borrow for capital expenditures, including the following. From the Board of Selectmen, the website redesign, Town Hall HVAC system that was formerly, that was just a new one added and had previously been roof repair for Town Hall. Fire Department, portable radio replacement, fire alarm upgrade, building inspections, replacement vehicle, youth outreach, the renovation and the furnace of a new office, Council on Aging, replace the front and the side doors, Conservation Commission, land acquisition and management, School Department, Wheelock, front entry parking lot restoration, replace the freezer, remove, abate, retile 3 classrooms, Blake, auditorium seat repair replacement, waterproofing and masonry. The high school, replace band uniforms. District, security system upgrade and a field study. Police department, replacement cruiser, radio system upgrade. Public works, cemetery, oops, I don't know how to say this one, columbarium. Is that right? Okay. Highway Chapter 90, you can see the equipment listed here, sweeper, compact loader, snowplow, and the highway also 3 equipment. And Park and Rec, a new community center study.
No discussion? Article 17.
Article 17, to see if the town will vote to transfer $163,669.40 from the sewer betterment payment in advance to the sewer stabilization fund, established under Article 31 of the 2004 Annual Town Meeting in accordance with the provisions of the General Law 40, Section 5B, as amended by Chapter 46 of the Acts of 2003, and/or do anything in relation thereof.
Article 18, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to prepare and adopt an other post-employment benefits trust agreement to govern the establishment and management of the town's OPEB trust fund, to appoint the trustees of said trust, to execute the trust agreement with said trustees, and to take any and all other actions to implement the town's prior acceptance of GL Chapter 32B, Section 20. This is a follow-on article to the establishment of the trust fund last year. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to transfer the balance of funds in the unfunded retiree health insurance stabilization fund to the OPEB trust, which was authorized by Article 21 of the 2014 annual town meeting, or do or act anything in relation thereto. This takes, yes, Mark.
On this Article 19 and 20 are both dependent on 18 passing. So, Mr. Moderator, these installed through 18th required first.
For those who don't follow OPEB funding closely, for several years, the town's had a stabilization fund
Right.
that we've been contributing to, but last year we established a trust fund, which is actually a better vehicle and a more favorable vehicle for the town. So the fund has been established, the agreement's establishing it. Now, this would transfer the money from the stabilization fund into the trust fund.
And then the next article would be an additional, would be new funds.
Right. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to transfer $33,428 from the FY15 county retirement contribution budget account to the other post-employment benefits trust and appropriate to said trust fund from free cash or other sources and/or such other sums as the town deems appropriate for the purpose of setting aside monies to cover the unfunded retiree health insurance costs in accordance with the provisions of GL Chapter 32B, Section 20, or do or act anything in relation thereto. This is taking money that the town gets for paying the county, making the county contribution, I think, upfront once a year, and as a result, we get an interest payment. We've been doing this for several years now.
We get a discount, we don't get an interest payment.
Thank you, George. Okay. But it spends the same. It goes into the account.
Okay, Article 21, to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the school permanent planning and building committee for the purpose of purchasing and installing new boilers to replace the existing boilers at the Ralph Wheelock School at 17 Elm Street. This will materially extend the useful life of the school, preserve the asset. The town incurs an excess, if there are any grants given, the town has to pay the remainder. If any grants received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the town. Any grant that Medfield may receive from the MSBA for the project shall not exceed the lesser of 39.84% of eligible approved project costs as determined by the MSBA, or the total maximum grant amount determined by the MSBA.
Article 22, to see if the town will vote to transfer from the Sewer Enterprise Fund unreserved fund balance a sum of money to offset the operating costs of the Sewer Enterprise Fund for fiscal year 16, and do or take any action relating thereto. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of constructing a pocket park, landscape green space on a parcel of town-owned land between Starbucks and Zebra. Said design and construction be done under the direction of the Board of Selectmen or its designee, and to vote officially to designate the name by which said park shall be known.
Gus?
Article 24, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of hiring consultants, engineers, and/or attorneys to advise the town on matters concerning the disposition and reuse and/or the environmental site remediation of the former Medfield State Hospital property, including the preparation of a site and/or townwide master plans. Said funds to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, with the understanding that the Board of Selectmen may authorize any other town, board, commission, committee, or department to expend a portion of said funds for such purposes, or do or act anything in relation thereto. Well, it's actually, it's only the single article, so, yes.
Mr. Honey? Questions, comments?
I thought you were gonna wait till the very end.
No, we'll discuss this now. It was just during the budget period we were gonna do that.
While the microphone is being passed, this particular article is focused on the funds that are required to support the redevelopment of the property. This is not the article that supports the ongoing maintenance and security of the property. I'm just trying to fill in some time here while the microphone gets over there for people's benefit.
This reads as an all-inclusive article, and obviously, I think everyone in town wants to see that site handled properly. And, no disrespect to the committee that's going ahead with hiring a consultant. I'm concerned that there's a major force driving the probability of rather extensive housing up there. And that gives me concern. We worked very hard for many years to see that the state didn't do 440 units up there. And common sense tells us, tells me anyway, that a developer coming in here is going to need significant development to break even, never mind make money. And we've been effectively told that by some of the consultants who came through the hospital meetings, which I have attended every single one of them. So, I mean, I know at this point that there's a high probability that the committee is going to come back to the selectmen with a recommendation for development of the property rather than retaining the property in the town's name. Or at least a good segment of the property would be sold for development. I think that has great risks for the town. And I would urge the Warrant Committee, which reports to the town meeting and not to the selectmen, to take a very hard look to see that the town is given a fair choice. That those people in town who want to see that stay open for recreation, perhaps for future value, for another town generation down the road, but that we have not seen 5 months go by yet since that property was bought by the town, and we're in a great rush to go forward. I mean, you people, I don't believe, have met with the hospital. I understand you might have met with the chairman, but I don't think you've met with the committee. And, you know, there's so many aspects to this that we're not going to go through them tonight. What I would hope to see is the promise that was made to town meeting, that town meeting would decide. But to decide means that they have to have all of the data, the information, and not just, you know, a programmed approach to see that the property, in a putative sense, might bring an extra 2% or 4% from the state's share of the sale. I mean, that's de minimis. It means nothing, really. You're talking small change, if any. But you're talking high risk if this goes out in any immediate manner. And by immediate, I mean in the next 2, 3, 4 years to a large-scale developer, or to any developer, which does not mean that there wouldn't be some housing up there. It does not mean that some of the buildings might be saved, but we haven't had a discussion between the committee that's sponsoring this through the selectmen. We haven't had a meeting of that committee with any of the committees in town, I don't believe. The chairman perhaps has met, again, with 1 or 2 of the other of the committees, but there has not been a meeting with the school committee, with the planning board. We do have a representative from the planning board appointed, but we haven't had the planning board meet with them. There's so much misinformation that I think you're going to have to be careful what you do with this. Now, I'm not opposed, because we've gone so far with these consultants. You know, we had, what, 9 consultants come through there. And I understand, I think you're looking at about 100 and some, well, that the proposal, last time we heard it at the meeting, was $193,000, you know, for the...
Well, I think the amount currently being carried for this request is $150,000.
160?
150 to hire consultants. And I do think that, you know, this article is aimed at trying to give people at town meeting, from the Warrant Committee's perspective, and we've said this, that, you know, we think this is an issue that ought to be dealt with by next town meeting, one way or the other. And so it is certainly our hope as a Warrant Committee that these consultants can be retained and be in a position so that town meeting can have all of this information to make a judgment on what they're going to do. Because the next article, as we get to, you'll see, relates to the ongoing carrying costs.
I appreciate that.
And so this is a pro-informational article at this point.
True, but the road you start on is going to take you along to where you finish. And what I'm suggesting is, we're not looking at a clear proposal, costs and benefits, value of the property. What we're looking at is skewed by some, I think, bad idea of making money on the basis of the land LDA, land disposition agreement. And it's foolishness. There won't be much, if any, money there, and to go at it in a rush is a huge mistake.
Well, I would say, at least from the warrant committee's perspective, we're not going to go at it in a rush, but I mean, town meeting did endorse unanimously that agreement, which includes incentives for completing a sale in the near term. And so I think if we want to give town meeting a fair shot of...
They didn't agree to a sale in the near term.
Well, they agreed to the agreement.
They agreed to a
the
purchase
proposal.
of overwhelmingly agreed to the purchase, but there was no proposition before that town meeting that said, we're going to develop this,
No.
or we're going to sell it. If we buy it, we're going to sell it. There was a coordination of a lot of different interests that resulted in a near, if not overwhelming, universal passage of the article. But that doesn't mean that there's not a strong segment in this community that wants to see that property stay for open space, recreation, and in the town's ownership. And who sees the value of it, even though it's going to be, have costs related to it, significant costs. But the significant costs will be outstripped by the costs down the road if we see development go in there. We haven't even swallowed the 93 houses on, residences on West Street. And here we're going to go ahead and try to go out.
Mr. Sorrell wanted to have a comment, if I
I
could.
just want to point out, this article has been on the warrant for the last half a dozen or so years, ever since the state hospitals reactivated. And it's not an article that focuses specifically on the redevelopment or disposition of the property. It's simply a place saver so that the town can appropriate whatever expenses are deemed necessary for various consultants or attorneys for whatever purposes relating to the property. So,
You know, it'd be nice if
I'm not
Mr.
disputing what Mr. Honey's saying. I'm not discussing the merits. I'm just saying procedurally, this is the same article that's been coming forward in the recent past with funding for consultants as legal.
So if council is going to pontificate on this, it would be nice if he attended some of the meetings. I haven't seen at one of them. So,
Could I just clarify, just for purposes of where the town is, as we understand it, some of your points are valid. We haven't sat down with the reuse committee, and I don't know all the different committees that the reuse committee has sat down with, but my understanding, and maybe Bill Massaro may clarify this, but we are closing in, although the article is pretty much the same as it's always been, so from a wording and procedure standpoint, there's no change, and in fact, even the placeholder amount, pending any final number that comes in, is a similar number to what we've carried for a couple of years. The environmental cleanup of the state hospital property is coming to a close. As my understanding, there is some remaining C&D oversight work that will be covered by this article through October. But the focus of, or the anticipated focus of what will happen here is the kind of support and analysis that's required up front for the town to decide how to go about redeveloping the property. So, this isn't a redevelopment contract. It's the master planning that presumably will take many of the things that you're talking about into account. The only thing I would add around the discussions to date is there has been a public involvement process that got us to the conceptual idea of what the town would like to see. So it's not like this has been done totally in a vacuum. There's more work to be done. I'm not disputing the need to make sure that all the voices are heard.
Mr. Murphy, I'm appreciative of your bringing that forward, but all I'm asking is that the process be complete, fair, that we not have this promotion of development until we accept the principle that the property will be developed. And query, how do you get the town to know that, not to know it, but how do you get the town's sense of that if the only thrust we see is for development, you see?
So the issue on the table tonight is an article for the town meeting to allocate $150,000 to fund we're not the ones that are gonna do what you're asking for. The only issue we've got here is a warrant article to fund the continuing analysis, actually the continuing master planning and the oversight.
What I'm asking for is that you be alert to objectivity, that when it comes back with recommendations from this consultants that we've looked at are all development consultants. These developers are not, the consultants aren't coming in here trying to help Medfield keep that open space and recreation, okay? They're in here, coming in here to see to development. We ought to be clear on it, you know. So what we need to do is to see that there's an a pare opportunity, that the people who want to see this stay in the town's name, after the struggle we went through to get it, want to see it remediated, which will be costly to bring it back, but not as costly as down the road cost will be if we go through development. You know, we've had figures of $10 to $15 million to take the buildings down and regrade the land, okay? That's a significant piece of money, but it's not at all comparable to what the bill would be over the next 10 years if we don't take that course. Anyhow, I'm just looking for a fair choice to be presented to town meeting.
Well, I think from the warrant committee's perspective, we're in favor of the same thing. We have the same goal.
Right.
And I think
And
this
I
article-
hope you will insist on that.
We will
That
insist
the
on it.
information, that the data be brought in there so that we can all look at it and do our own analysis.
We will insist upon it.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Article 20, anything
Article
else?
25, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of providing ongoing maintenance and security at the site of the former state hospital, or do or take any action in relation thereto. This is the article that does focus on the ongoing, basically it's the ongoing carrying cost of the property sitting the way it is right now. Placeholder on that, and again, it's a placeholder, is $200,000 for our budget planning at this point in time.
Article 26. To see if the town will authorize the Board of Selectmen to sell, trade, or otherwise convey surplus and/or obsolete equipment, furnishings, and supplies, but not buildings or land located on the grounds or in the buildings at the former state hospital site, provided that any funds received by the town from such transactions be deposited in a special state hospital maintenance and security stabilization fund, as provided under General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to be used to maintain and secure that property until such time as a determination and/or disposition of the property is made, or do or act anything in relation thereto.
Article 27, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of preparing preliminary plans for an addition to the town's adult community center, known as the Center at Medfield, or do or act anything in relation thereto.
This is $50,000. right?
$50,000, yeah.
Number Article 28, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of helping the Economic Development Committee further its goals and of local business support by funding business surveys and market research, or do or act anything in relation thereto.
That's a $5,000 request. Article 28.
Article 29, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and/or the Conservation Commission to place a agricultural preservation restriction on a portion of the Holmquist Farm property off Plain Street. This is in satisfaction of a revision of the land disposition agreement between the town of Medfield and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance regarding the sale of the former state hospital property, or do or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Medfield by adding a new Chapter 115 cemetery areas to read as follows. Article 1, use of cemetery land and facilities. Article 115.1, use and control of cemetery land and facilities. The Cemetery Commission is hereby authorized to promulgate written rules and regulations subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen for the proper conduct of persons while on town cemetery land and facilities under its control. Said rules and regulations, once promulgated, shall be filed with the town clerk and posted in a conspicuous place in or at each town cemetery facility under the commission's control to which the general public has access. 115.2, violations and penalties. Any person who engages in conduct prohibited by said rules and regulations and not otherwise prohibited by Massachusetts general laws or by these bylaws shall be subject to a fine of $100 for the first offense, $200 for the second offense, $300 for the third offense, and $300 for each subsequent offense. In addition, repeated violations may result in suspension or termination of access privileges. The Cemetery Commission or its designee and the Medfield Police Department shall each have the authority to enforce the provisions of this bylaw or do or act anything in relation thereto. Article 31, go right ahead.
Any discussion on 30? Nope.
Article 31 is see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Medfield. Article 180, this relates to noise. The following sections are 108-3, 108-3, 180-5, and 180-7. By renumbering section 180-4 and 180-3, and renumbering section 180-6 to 180-4, and by adding the proposed following new language. This is Article 4, prohibited operations and activities. Okay, so the first relates to prohibited noise between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. The exceptions relate to snow removal and individual property owners personally performing regular maintenance on their residential property. Article 5, the enforcement and penalties. The enforcement violation and penalties, again, the offenses are $50 for the first offense, $100 for the second, $150 for the third and each subsequent. And the police department and the building commissioner designee shall have the authority to enforce the provision of this section or do or act anything in relation thereto.
Mr. Sorrell?
I worked with the bylaw government review committee on this. It's modeled after a bylaw I prepared in Franklin. Basically, you take a simple approach rather than dealing with noise or decibel levels. It just determines that certain activities generate noise and excessive noise and therefore are prohibited during certain time frames.
And just commercial. It prohibits commercial use, so homeowners can do what they like.
And it exempts homeowners.
Right.
And it also, in case of emergency and snow plowing, is also exempt. At the moment, we don't have anything on the books. The police have been successful in the past in getting cooperation voluntarily from contractors who have started up work at sites early, but this actually gives them some authority if there's a problem.
Thank you. Any discussion? Nick?
Article 32, to see if the town will vote to amend the town code of Medfield, Massachusetts, Chapter 30, zoning, Article 9, non-conforming uses, structures and lots, paragraph 9.1, application of non-conformity by adding new section C. Change, extension, or alteration of non-conforming structures. Number 1, the building commissioner may permit a proposed extension, alteration, or change to a pre-existing conforming single or two-family dwelling if he or she determines that there will be no increase to the non-conforming nature of said structure. Proposed extension, alteration, or change shall be deemed not to increase the non-conforming nature or said structure if A, the structure is located on a lot with insufficient area, frontage, width, depth, or perfect square, but the proposed extension, alteration, or change complies with all other current requirements of the table of area regulations and the table of height and bulk regulations. B, the structure already encroaches upon one or more required yard or setback areas, but the proposed extension, alteration, or change will comply with the appropriate setbacks for the proposal and all others current setback, yard and building height requirements that the original lot complied with. Number 2, A proposed extension, alteration, or change to a pre-existing non-conforming single or two-family dwelling that the building commissioner determines will increase the non-conforming nature of such structure shall require the granting of a special permit from the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals may grant a special permit if it determines that such extension, alteration, or change will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structure. 3, other pre-existing non-conforming structures may be extended, altered, or changed upon the granting of a special permit from the Board of Appeals if the Board of Appeals finds that such extension, alteration, or change will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming building or structure.
Article 33, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town Code of Medfield, Mass., Chapter 30 zoning, Article 2 definitions, to add the definition for height in appropriate alphabetical order. Height, the vertical distance not to exceed the maximum identified in the table of height and bulk regulations between the highest point of the roof and the average elevation of the naturally existing grade. The measurements will be taken around the structure or at the four corners prior to any excavation, leveling, grading, or filling at the building foundation. The maximum height is exclusive of chimneys, air shafts, ventilators, vents, lightning rods, or other or similar items which may be of the height required for proper operation of use. Building height applies to all buildings and/or structures. The building shall remain in compliance with the height requirement after the final grading.
Can I just ask a question on that? Does that impact the current height that's allowed now under our zoning? Does that increase the height of a building that would be permitted?
John here?
Yep. No, it's not gonna touch, because right now we're at 35, and that's not gonna change it. A lot of it was due to the fact that you could basically change grade and then put yourself up on top of a hill. We didn't want anybody up on top of the hill. We wanted to be able to keep it at basically the natural grade plane that's already there.
Article 34, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town Code of Medfield, Mass., Chapter 30 zoning, Article 6, Paragraph 6.3, height and bulk regulations, Attachment 3, to eliminate the column permitted heights, parentheses, stories. You see the chart there.
Article 35, to see if the town will vote to amend the Town Code of Medfield, Chapter 300 zoning, Article 6 area, height and bulk regulations, Paragraph 6.3, height and bulk regulations. Recreational structures are subject to the requirements of the table of height and bulk regulations adopted in accordance with Article 300-6.2 of the Medfield zoning bylaw, except by the Board of Appeals, may in districts RE, RT, RS, and RU by special permit as specified in section 14.10E, allow a greater maximum lot coverage not to exceed 5% beyond the maximum lot coverage for the zoning district. Article 36, to see if the town will vote to name the intersection of Emerson Road and Flintlock Lane Paul F. Curran Civic Square in memory of Paul F. Curran, and appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the installation of a sign which includes the town seal and indicates this designation, and for the appropriate dedicatory services, or do or take any other action relating thereto.
Article 37, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of setting up and funding a program to dispose of medical syringes, and authorize the Board of Health to apply for federal, state, and/or private grants, and to enter into contracts for said purpose, or do or act anything in relation thereto.
Article 38, to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money and to determine in what manner said sum shall be raised for the purpose of conducting a traffic study of the South Street, Spring Street, High Street, Route 27 intersection, or do or take any action relating thereto.
Let me just speak on this for a comment. This is the intersection where South Street comes down to 27 and makes like the dog leg and continues up towards Indian Hill Road. About 10, 12 years ago, we addressed what was a major problem there by putting lights by High Street and South Street. So now we're able to get people safely to work in a manageable way. However, these same people have to come home, and we've never addressed that issue, and that traffic now backs up from South Street, sometimes all the way to Grist Mill and the railroad tracks, and now, because that traffic is so bad, people are now taking Curve Street, which is one of the narrowest streets we have in town, and now you're getting the traffic backing up onto Curve Street because they think they can beat the traffic that's coming in onto South Street. I don't know what the answer to that is. It's a complex intersection because you can't just put another set of traffic lights there because the distance is so short between the two, the line of traffic would be backing up into one light. So and there's a couple of examples we talked about over in Franklin where they have such intersections, so you'd have to construct that so the two lights would work together as if it was one intersection that was in there. I think it's an accident waiting to happen that's there, and what we're looking for, I think the chief estimates around $12,000 or so to look to see what is the answer. We solved it, getting the people to work, but we now have the problem, these same people have to come home. So that's the intent of that, to try to address what I think is a major problem in that south section of town.
Any other discussion? All right, Barbara.
Article 39, see if the town will accept sections 3 to 7 inclusive of Chapter 44B of the general laws, otherwise known as the Massachusetts Community Preservation Act, by approving a surcharge on real property for the purposes permitted by said act, including the acquisition, creation, and preservation of open space, the acquisition, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of historical resources, the acquisition, creation, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of land for recreational uses, the acquisition, creation, preservation, and support of community housing, and the rehabilitation and restoration of such open space and community housing that is acquired or created as provided under said act, to determine the amount of such surcharge on real property as a percent of the annual real estate tax levy against real property, and in the fiscal year in which said surcharge shall commence, to determine whether the town will accept any of the exemptions from such surcharge as that are permitted under Section 3E of said act. And the maximum.
Sorry.
The maximum percentage under this is 3% of real estate taxes, property taxes.
Any discussion?
Article 40, to see if the town will authorize the Board of Assessors to use a sum of money from free cash in the treasury for the reduction of the state rate, the tax rate for the fiscal year 2016, or do or act anything in relation thereto.
Right. Any other questions, discussion, comments at all? All right. Hearing none, the hearing is closed. Thank you. If you enjoyed that, you can come for the rest of our meeting downstairs.
Riveting. So Scott, we got through it in less than 50 minutes.
Hi, I'm Jeff Marsden, and you're watching Medfield.tv.